Hi everyone, this is Sunette, and in this video we are discussing identity and the identity crisis that most people, or shall we say most of humanity, is facing. Now let's first understand this identity crisis and from there have a look at possible solutions in relation to how this particular identity crisis has caused us to focus more on our own and each other's differences than similarities. And within this, the consequence has been that it has separated us and divided us instead of uniting us as equals and as one in terms of assisting and supporting ourselves and each other in a way that we contribute to life on earth, to our life experiences and each other's life experiences, right? So with that overall context, let's go into a little bit more detail. Let's have a look at identity. So identity, for example, can be where identity or definition, self-definition, it's quite the same thing in the sense that do you, for example, identify yourself with a particular sexuality, a particular religion or spirituality, a nationality, a culture, a sport? And within this, do you find that, within that particular relationship to what you identify yourself with, that anyone that does not belong to that particular group, if you will, with whom you identify yourself with? Because if you have a look at, for example, different sexualities, cultures, nationalities, sports, even your name, your environment, fashion, in each and every single one of those have got obviously a group of people who experience a belonging in relation to that, especially if you define yourself to a particular identity or group. So within this, what I would like each one of you to do is to, for a moment, make a list, of what defines you, what or who do you identify with, and within that list, for example, include your sexuality, your fashion, your sports, your nationality, your culture, in terms of really seeing for yourself the very specific groups who you also belong with and within that. And then to have a look for yourself, all right, in terms of people who are different, all right? For example, some people you've come across who, does not or are not able to relate to you in any way whatsoever. Like, for example, they've got a different sexuality than yours. They've got a different religious or spiritual affiliation, or even none. They are not so much into sports at all. They have been traveling all over the world, and so for them they don't feel that they belong to a particular country or origin. So here comes a person who is the complete and total opposite of you, and most of the time that can be a complete opposite, or sometimes we even come across people who, for example, is different in but one identity or definition. Like, for example, you've got an exceptional amount in common, but they, for example, they simply have a different religious belief or spiritual affiliation. And, simply because of that one part of their life that is different to yours, you will not allow yourself to, for example, really connect with that person, or have a intimate or long-term relationship with them. And this is also something that you can look at for yourself in terms of what it is within your life that you identify with the most. You can even hierarchically structure all those identities that you have linked yourself into and defined yourself as. So within this, we're not at all saying that there is anything wrong with the identities or the self-definitions, not at all. What we would suggest, though, is for you to include something within that. Do you know what's interesting? That if each person on Earth would include one thing, and we all do that together, equally, as one, that we might start looking at ourselves and each other just a little bit differently. The one word that I would suggest having a look at including is the word life, the word living. From the perspective that if we have a look at all people on Earth, I mean, we're all here together living. Well, yes, we can actually at the moment more say surviving, but we're all living, and within that we're all breathing. We have all received a breath of life to be able to live and exist on this earth, in this world. Within that we're all equal and we're all one. We all have that breath of life that is giving life to ourselves, our bodies, our very existence. But we're all so focused, as I've mentioned, well, most, I mean, granted, there's been some extraordinary people on Earth who, can look beyond all the identities and definitions and, connect with themselves and one another beyond all of that, in terms of really seeing that there is something more to ourselves as people, and that even though two people are complete opposites, completely different in all aspects of identification and definition, they still find that deep connection, between each other. And what I mean by connection is just that, yes, I mean, obviously the differences are obvious, but there are also some similarities in the way of, sharing a general interest in certain books or general knowledge and information. They find that something that is a similarity, even if it's the smallest thing, and that the rest is, and everything else is completely different. But still they develop quite a fascinating relationship where they start complementing each other, learning from, allowing each other to open up and learn from one another. Right, so this is the point that I'd like to make. And for you to have a look at this within yourself as well, that which you identify with or define yourself as, that it does not supersede your ability to connect, to communicate, to interact, to get to know people who are completely different to you. And mostly you will find that, you will make a decision to not connect with someone or communicate with them or interact with them simply because of the differences in certain identities or self-definitions. But to challenge yourself, to for a moment realize that, yes, you may have different identities and definitions and connections to various things in this world, in this reality. And that will always be a part of you, always belong to you. And that taking that step to allow someone to become a part of your life, a part of your world, is to open yourself up just that little bit more and maybe let them share themselves. You may be so surprised at what you can learn from and gather and experience, through other people in simple communication and interaction, in focusing a bit more on the differences, and having a look at asking yourself rather, what more can I learn from this person? What more about me, about life, about even the things that I do identify with or define myself as, so within that as well, then to add that one word to what you identify yourself with, what you define yourself as, that life. Start realizing that all of humanity have that word, have that in our existence, to assist and support yourself, to start seeing more to you and more to other people than only the surfaced identities or definitions. Start learning more about yourself and others, and realize how much more we can all unite if we but start connecting within that equality and that oneness that we do have. All right. Thank you very much.